Is it bad?
Possibly. Or maybe I was right in my theory video all along.
Did someone change my settings? Oh, that was what's in our DMs earlier. Talk about that afterwards. Right, has someone changed the settings on? Usually it tells me I have to go live.
We're live.
We're live. I know, but usually I have to confirm to go live. Now it just goes live instantly. Okay, that's...
Yeah, no, that's YouTube, baby. It just goes live now. Yeah,
I mean, that's good in one way, but at the same time, it's because, weirdly enough, the CJ channel has 200k subscribers. That one's live stream stuff are out of date compared to this. We've got much more advanced stuff here on the TC channel for some reason. Not sure why.
Nope. Because we're in the 2nd century, baby.
Oh, because we travel to the future, just like the Discovery.
Well, excuse me, sat in the past with my old scientists, or those old scientists, or whatever it was.
That's right.
Those old scientists.
Right, hello everyone, welcome to TC Live for the week beginning with 22nd November. I am back, your faithful leaders. Music has turned off already, oh dear. I am back after a week off last week. How did it go last week, Nick and Dom, who I'm going to introduce casually?
It went really well.
Did it?
Yeah. I thought it went pretty good. I thought, actually, the feedback I got was, we're so glad that Jack wasn't there. That was what I heard. But don't quote me on that.
Bye! I'm just going to roll out of here. Right, so yeah, we're back this week discussing Scavengers, which is episode 6, wasn't it? Yeah, because 7 is Unification. Yeah. I got confused. Episode 6. Yes, it's going to be pretty cool. So, right, I'm just going to put the tweet out a minute. So, Dom and Nick, why don't you give me your first details about this episode? So, Nick, you go first. What do you think of this episode, Scavengers? Tell us about it while I quickly type a tweet out.
So I obviously had the controversial opinion for those of you who saw my review video over on the channel. Not my favorite episode. Probably the weakest of the season for me so far. And that really just has to do with essentially it being, for two reasons. Number one, it being a follow-up to episode 5, which was phenomenal and packed full of stuff, whereas this episode really didn't have anything going on. And the other reason being that the characters of Saru and Michael Burnham were acting contrary to the resolution that they had established at the end of episode 5, which was them kind of learning a little bit how to work together. Saru trying to step up and being a more understanding captain to stand up to Admiral, and then Michael Burnham having to struggle again and continue to respect authority and work on those things. And in this episode, they just reset that again and pretended like that whole conversation didn't happen. And so she wound up getting fired from her job for a really contrived kind of bullshit reason, which we can get into later on. But yeah, overall, not my favorite. Didn't really enjoy this one all that much. And that's okay, though. I said this in my review video, is I have a full understanding that by the time that all 13 episodes or whatever have aired, and we actually get to see the season binge through and play out, it probably won't feel as bad as it does to me right now, because it'll be fit into the context of all the other episodes. But as of right now, this is a bit of a weak point. So hopefully we tick back up with Unification. But that's how I feel.
And Dom, yourself?
Yeah, I will kind of agree with Ketwolski here, but I loved a lot of aspects of this episode. But I felt like the second act of it, the middle part of it, was quite dragging, especially on Hunhao. I found that different from you, the character stuff between Saru and Burnham. I actually enjoyed that. I didn't see it as a regression from last episode. I saw it as stepping up from last episode. I loved, we didn't get much Adira last week. So I'm glad we got some Adira this week. The upgrades to Discovery, she's more beautiful now.
Oh, yes.
We've got to talk about how that ties into Calypso, obviously, but that's a discussion for another time. I just love some of the world building that this episode did with the Emerald Chain specifically. We got more reference to Osira, the leader of the Emerald Chain. We saw very much in this episode how on the back foot the Federation was, and how they were very much putting out fires. Okay, we need to get some shield generators to these guys. We need to get replicators to those guys. You're on a 2-month journey. We'll see you in a bit. I liked that, and I liked the position this episode puts the Admiral in. and I'm just loving the Dadmal. So that's my thoughts on this episode, and we'll get more into it.
Can we get Memory Alpha to update his name to Dadmal instead, just like a nickname? We need one of the characters to give him a nickname.
Okay, Tilly would call him Dadmal.
If they can write that into season 4 or something like that, just so like an offhand comment, just so it's canon, would be hilarious. Like in The Mandalorian, how Blue Jeans guy is now canon because he appeared in an episode. We need something stupid like that.
If the Dadmal memes catch on, I think it's definitely possible they'll do that. I mean, they've literally launched an entire show based off of the fan reaction to Anson Mount's Pike portrayal. So I think if we make Dadmal trend on Twitter a couple of times, they'll be like, okay, we should call him the Dadmal for real in the episode.
TJ, if you're watching, can we start a petition just like we did for Pike, please? You know, can we start one for Dadmal instead?
Star Trek Dadmal? I'm with it. Yeah.
Star Trek Dadmal. So Seal says, Dadmal, he totally had, but I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. And he did, didn't he? Right, thank you to Tom Casey for your $5 donation. For somebody who's not appearing on my YouTube side. Like the episode, Mr. Ketwolski, it's not much love. The new upgrades for yes, the new upgrades for his ship is something we'll talk about as we go on. So this episode overall, I didn't mind it, though it was kind of, I didn't want to say filler in a way, because I know it's a dangerous comment to throw around, but I didn't see there was much progression overall. Maybe that's because it is a bolt-on to last week's episode, like you just said, Nick. It is fitting into that, really, and that's maybe why this episode 6 was created to, you know, just fill the gap in a way, because realistically, apart from like establishing more about the Emerald Chain, there wasn't a massive reason to have the whole like, oh, let's go off and retrieve the black box sort of thing. That could have been done elsewhere, I feel.
I would also say that a lot of season 3's episodes very much stand by themselves. You don't need to have watched the previous episode to watch it, I feel. I mean, I don't know, because obviously I watched the previous episode. But I feel like this episode lacks in that regard, and you have to kind of watch the last episode.
What someone said to me, and I think someone said this in our review comments, is it's been interesting if Discovery had more to do, whereas maybe they did have to jump to this planet without the first officer. Therefore, the ramifications of Burnham not actually being present and pissing off to do her own journey, you know, it would have justified Saru's decision a bit more, and also the Admiral's, like, you know, angle a bit more. There would have been more, like, you know, weight to their ultimate decision there. And I personally felt good. Also, it would have given Discovery something to do, but maybe this is just, you know, a restrictive episode due to budget constraints, something like that. You know, they just didn't want to spend the money animating Discovery, you know, creating it, going off and blasting some aliens, etc. They didn't even have to show it. They could have just showed Discovery jumping off and jumping back later or something like that.
Yeah.
Just to imply that Discovery's not just sat around the whole time doing nothing.
Right, It felt almost like an episode of Lower Decks in that regard, where the Discovery was doing nothing and our POV characters were off doing something. And it was like, well, what is the Discovery doing? Well, they're just waiting. Well, they don't need to wait because, I don't know, it was just a very contrived...
It does sort of make sense in a way, like they are rapid responders, so they'll go where and when the situation arises. So it technically does make sense. But at the same time, you think, you know, okay, while you're not here, if you're rapid respond, you could quickly ferry these resources to point A to point B for us. And if something does hit the fan, then you can jump over here. We'll just keep you in radio range or something like that. I feel like that could be a bit more, you know, make a bit more sense. But also, it was nice to get the scenes on the Discovery with Stamets and Adira, which is quite nice. And that scene between Stamets and Adira, and Gray, obviously, and then a scene between Stamets and Culber. Really nice scenes and good to have them there. And I felt like that helped character development a bit. Because as Dom just said, Adira wasn't really present much in the previous episode, apart from popping in, going off to a medical scan, to which then they just disappeared. So it's like, okay, but yeah, I don't know. It's a lot to think about.
Yeah, so I mean, because the issue is, I do feel like, and I'd love to know. I'd love to talk to somebody in the production on this, because it feels as though episode 5 felt like it was 2 different episodes, in a good way. Like it felt like they had cut a bigger 2 episodes kind of together. But they made it work very well. But I feel like because they may have scrunched those together, it left 6 a little bit weaker in terms of story. And it just, I think with just a couple of tweaks, it could have been really great. Like they could have just said that the mission was sanctioned, and they could have just said, you need to go do this because the black box stuff is very important and we need to actually go on there. And maybe they could have actually sent off, you know, Burnham and Georgiou and a couple of the newer versions of Section 31 agents to go and retrieve it, and kind of went on a little black ops mission or something like that, and kind of stress that piece. You know, they could have done like just a couple of tweaks, and it could have been something much better, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the whole Georgiou dynamic was interesting, how she's having these flashbacks now. I guess that was an interesting element of, you know, her going off with Michael, and how that put Michael and her in danger because she's having these like very gruesome or graphic flashbacks in a way. And I feel like we should discuss that quickly. I mean, do you guys have any theories so far on what that's relating to? Because I looked into it and my first thought, you could hear her saying son or son. I thought, oh, maybe she's lost a son in a mirror universe or maybe something to do with that. Then it sounds like San instead, which I asked Dom to look into. Did you find anything of that? Or
no, I haven't. So far, I haven't actually explored, because apparently someone said that it's in the book, Die Standing, this character called San. I will say with subtitles on for this episode, it does say San.
Okay.
So it is a character.
We should just tweet to the author and ask.
Well, it could be a character. It could be another language.
Potentially. Well, it could literally be a word for something, or for San.
It could be a word. It could be a nickname. It could be it could be anything. Yeah, I think it's important to note that it's not son.
Yeah, because that's my original thought. Because obviously in the Mirror Universe stuff, we know that Jojo almost like quote unquote adopted Michael as her daughter. It's not biological, but she adopted her and treated her like a daughter, and that's how Lorca came in and tried to abuse his position, etc. And that's a whole like element in season 1 there, and obviously it's stretched over in season 2. You can definitely tell there is a mother-daughter relationship between Mira Jojo and also Prime Burnham in a way, and you almost see that between Prime Jojo and Prime Burnham in a way, because they've served together so long. There is that mother-daughter relationship there in essence. So you definitely see that carrying through there. So if like Jojo did lose a son or lose someone close to them, Michael stepping in to replace that person, could be a very like a coping mechanism in a way. It's like when someone loses something, they grapple to what's next, or they get a dog, etc. Not saying Michael's a dog or anything, but you get my point.
I understand what you mean.
Some people in the chat are saying that San was a former lover of Jojo.
Okay.
In the Mirror Universe.
San is back from Die Standing. Yeah, that's not what we've heard so far, but we've not found it in a book yet.
I can't remember them from Die Standing.
It was San in closed captioning. Yeah, okay. I mean, it's not on memory beta. I did check. But no one's entered it yet. But it's rather out of date on that page, so I'm not sure. Well, if anyone's read the book and definitely can tell us more about the
I've read the book. I just can't remember.
You read it quite a while
ago. If anyone has read the book and has a better memory than Dom, let us know.
Oh, please tweet to us and include hashtag Dom sucks.
I stand that. Yeah, I'm with it. I stand it.
If you turn out right, he has to buy us drinks at the next event.
I'm fine with that.
So the big question is not only is what she's seeing, but why is she seeing it? And a couple, I feel like the two biggest theories right now kind of going around is that Cronenberg-Kovich did something to her. Or I think that just the potential reality of the fact that the mirror universe may have been destroyed or has wiped out or fallen apart or whatever is causing her to reflect on just her life. And now that she's faced with a bit of reality, it could just be hitting her in certain ways. But ultimately, I'm a little it was good that we got some of the flashes and stuff like that. And I understand, that's why this episode kind of dragged a little bit, because we did not push the needle anywhere in any of those storylines. Nothing of importance happened. All we got was the black box and Michael got fired, and everything else was really nothing. We didn't really we didn't progress that plot point at all, which is fine. We still have a lot of episodes to get through, so I'm not stressed about it. This isn't The Mandalorian. So we have a lot of episodes to get through. That's right, I said it. But it does open up a lot of more mystery boxes. I appreciate the fact that they're giving Michelle Yeoh more things to do other than just be sarcastic and kick people in the head. But which I love. I'm not hating that. I appreciate that they're giving her more things to do. But I want to see what is this? And I don't want it to. I don't know. I don't know if it's. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm kind of conflicted about it right now. If that makes sense.
I will say that someone just shared in our Discord, which if you aren't in it, do, because.
Good plug.
Like-minded Trekkies, but someone showed a screenshot of San in the book. San is a former lover of Jojo.
It says here, I'm just reading what the person's put in there. Who's it put in there? It's Maz. I think it's
Seal.
Yeah, maybe Maz as well. So in this quote from Die Standing here, is it Die Standing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get confused with the episode now. It says, young people, herself and San, her beloved long dead San. The Emperor stepped toward them, wondering why she hadn't been noticed yet, when San delivered a kick that put her younger self onto the floor. Jojo stepped over to offer words of encouragement and a hand. Jojo switched to see San approaching with the same eyes, plus lightning. You don't belong here, he chanted. Okay. There's something definitely in the book then. So
Yeah, so we might see that.
because I thought the author of Dice Dining did say that it was going to link or potentially link in with it. Didn't? Yeah.
Yes.
Is it Dave Glancy? Is that the person
No,
thinking
it's,
of?
John Jackson Miller.
John Jackson.
who
Yeah.
wrote that
John
book,
Jackson Miller.
and
I'm
yeah,
thinking
he
of
said there
the
would
Stamets
be-
one instead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting how it's going to tie in now. I'm liking that in that case. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the fact that a lot of, I would say, Discovery has tied into these books.
Is this
It gives a lot of
canonizing the
reason-
books then? Because there's always been
I
a
would say
large and big discussion and argument over the Star Trek books and whether they are canon. It's fair to say the older ones aren't canon anymore because Picard has overwrote the Destiny timeline, etc. However, the new Discovery books essentially are tie-in media. I just wish CBS could be a little bit clearer. And almost do it how like Lucasfilm do it in a way. So Lucasfilm's now got the clear divide of what's canon and what's legends. So the new books are all canon now. So they all tie in like Aftermath, etc., Empire's End. If Trek could do that in a way, it could at least cement the books a bit more. So I feel like it, could help book readers out just a bit more. I mean, what's people's opinions on that?
I would
like to
prefer not to be.
Okay.
That's just me. I don't know how Dom feels about that. I know he's a big avid reader, so he probably has a different opinion than me. So
As long as it's not like you need to have read this book to understand
not
what's
that.
happening, then I'm fine with it. It just gives you an extra reason to want to read these books because you're like, oh, it could be referenced in the show I love. So
I guess you could use a prime example from Star Wars again of like Cobb Vanth and The Mandalorian, really. That's, a character who's jumped from books there, and if you want to learn more about him, you can go and read the books to understand how he got from point A to point B. I mean, we could be seeing something like that with his character as Sam. If they're mentioned again in here, it's like, oh, cool, I can go learn more about him by reading that book if I want to, but I don't need to read it. So it's like, okay, Discovery Season 3 is finished, I can now go read a book to learn more. That type of media works really well, I think, because I'm pretty sure we've all finished a series or a movie before and think, God, I really need more of that now. I want more of this. So you can go read the book or watch, a short thingy or whatever, a comic, etc. Speaking of comics, before I do forget, by the way, a brand new IDW comic came out this week just gone, which is Star Trek Voyager 7's Reckoning. If you've not had a chance to read this yet, our review is here on the channel. Definitely recommend it. A brand new Voyager comic is fantastic. And obviously it's got the lovely Jerry Ryan, 7 of 9. In this comic, it's set during the Delta Quadrant, when they're in it. And it's quite fun. It's a very fun read. And it looks like it's going to be a very interesting story as well. From the first comic alone, I'm really looking forward to reading the rest of it. And the next issue's out in December 30th, I believe. So yeah.
yeah.
So let's talk about the Discovery's upgrades. I think that's a good discussion to be had because changing ships in Star Trek is always something that gets us excited here on the channel, particularly when we've still not seen the bloody Enterprise F yet. But hey, one can dream. In fact, they could have tried an Odyssey in the station. I'm just saying, it could have been a futuristic Odyssey, but we did get a futuristic Constitution, so,
There could have been a futuristic Odyssey, but you can't see in there because it's so damn dark.
True, they've not
Turn the
actually
lights
shown
on.
any of the ships yet.
Show us a damn. Put the lights
Dadmil's
on.
trying to keep the energy bill down, Nick. Come on, show them
That's
some
such a
respect.
Dadmiral thing to do. It's the temperature, the
go and turn
thermostat.
the lights.
That's perfect. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What are we cooling the whole galaxy? Close the portal. Yeah. Right, exactly.
But we did get this new discovery as well. Now, I'm going to say this as well. I'm not massively keen on the nacelles being connected. I'm not sure why. Maybe I'm more of a traditional starship person.
You mean detached, right?
Yeah, detached nacelles. Not entirely keen on that, but I'm a fan of Halo where we do 4 on a ship, so it's the same thing. But I don't know. I've just been a bit weird about it. It's obviously yes, it's new to us, but to these people who live in the 32nd century, it's probably been the norm for the last 300 years. But it's like, I don't know. What do you guys think about detached nacelles?
I really like it.
You like it?
Yeah, I like how you could probably kind of angle them to go in different planes of travel. I would like to see more of them, so we can actually understand that it can communicate why. Because they say, oh, detached nacelles give extra maneuverability, blah blah blah. If we could see that, it would go a long way. And yeah, I just think it's cool. I think the fact that we are in the 32nd century, the technology is probably robust enough that it won't break.
Just snaps off.
One shot, because you would want something that doesn't break after one shot. So I'm sure it's robust. But yeah.
I would agree. I like I don't have any feelings towards it right now, because I need to see, like Dom just said, I need to see why are the nacelles detached. Let's see them in action. How do they function? Is there an actual purpose for it other than it looking cool? Because why change it? What would be the point of changing it? What's the desire to having detached nacelles? What does it do for them? So we need to see what that is and what that even impacts potentially with the spore drive or Discovery's maneuverability in general. Like, what is the purpose of detaching them other than making it more risky? Like, it's like on the offset, it looks dangerous because ships lose power all the time. There's always fluctuations. There's a ionization in the whatever nebula, and it causes ships' power to fluctuate. Like, if the power fluctuates, do they just drift away? Like, and then they're stuck. Like, you know what I mean? Though it's like it's a bit odd. So that's why they need to explain why.
Well, I guess this takes us back to our first discussion here. It's like if Discovery had more to do in this episode, we could have seen these new upgrades, tested out. If it had to jump to the system, it's like, right, we've just got a newly upgraded ship. We're without our first officer. Could hit the fan here. Let's go test it anyway. And, just something like that. But it's like, yeah, we repaired the ship, but we didn't really get to see it. So next episode, are we going to see it a bit more? I'm not sure. Because next episode, we'll talk more about Unification Part 3 in a minute. It does just look like they're hosting a bit of a party. So is Discovery actually going to be using these upgrades, or is it going to be sat around like a 32nd century chauffeur? Because if so, it's like we could maybe save this a little bit later.
Yeah. I think you actually talked about it earlier, and you hit the nail on the head which is its cost. It's going to probably cost a lot of money to animate all these things, and they're probably saving that for the finale.
Upgrading the model would have also, taken a bit. So you think your Discovery models lasted since season 1 with some minor adjustments at this point. Now, not completely change it because it's got the same shape, but definitely redesigning. I believe it looks like it's a different like skin or texture on it as well. It's not bronze anymore. It looks slightly different. So
no, yeah, the hull composition has definitely changed.
So that's obviously the design's going to take a lot, easily a week's worth of work there to completely redo that.
And not only just redo that for because they have to reskin all of their models that they have for any standard shots. Every one has to be reskinned and redone with the nacelles. Yeah, it's and it costs money. It takes time, costs money. And
can I just say, I feel really bad for Hero Collector who are going to have to make a detached nacelle model for Discovery. I can't imagine how they're going to try and make that work.
It'll probably be transparent blue plastic.
Maybe. I'm looking at my Discovery model on the shelf because I got them out this week. I'm like, building that is going to be a pain in the backside.
Yeah, it'll probably be something like, because like the separation, the coloring of that was like a light bluish, like it looked almost like spores is what it looked like to me.
Yeah, the
like
programmable matter. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, like it looked a bit like that. So I think they're going to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to ask a question to you guys because this did not bother me at all, but I know that it's a bit of a hot topic for some groups inside the fandom, which is how do you guys feel about them calling it a -A?
Oh, so Dom, do you mind if I go first?
Yeah, you can go first.
So for me, I'm just going to quickly do something in a minute because I remember this. But for me, it's like, well, technically, the Discovery itself is listed as destroyed in official Starfleet records. Even the Admiral says this, I believe, in episode 5. I think he says the Discovery is listed as destroyed. I think he says that. I mean, please quote me if I'm wrong. Yeah, so therefore, the original Discovery, the Crossfield class, technically is destroyed. It's listed there. The ship shouldn't exist anymore. It's a bit like, if the first Enterprise got blown up, it was destroyed. Hence why we commission an A. So technically, you can't recommission a Discovery. And I'm pretty sure there already was another Discovery in the future Star Trek as well. I'm just double checking. For a 24th century ship of the same name, please see the US Discovery. Here you go. US Discovery 24th century. This was seen in the episode Next Generation Conspiracy, and it's seen on one of the back screens. So there already was another USS Discovery in the 24th century in canon. This was in 2364. Therefore, no wonder it has to be an A, because that Discovery already existed and most likely was decommissioned or something happened to it. Starfleet already has 2 Discoveries in its whole thing. So obviously, that was made before Discovery itself came along. It's like, this makes sense for it to have an A. It technically is a new ship as well. It's come out of nowhere, literally. So it makes sense for that. And obviously, you're not really going to dig up old records. I'm pretty sure Starfleet wouldn't have the records anyway for that and why it got covered up. Because Pike and M probably took the secrets of what actually happened to the grave. No one's really going to know. So therefore, it has to become an A in my mind. I didn't see a big deal over it. If anything, it made sense because it practically is a new ship as well. It looks completely different. The inside's just roughly the same. How do you feel, Dom?
I feel like it makes sense. It's very much, to me, like Theseus's ship situation where they've changed the ship so drastically, like the hull has completely changed, that it basically is a new ship. And the A is the use of hyphenated letters and stuff is usually to keep the same registration, so it's still the NCC 1031. So it has to have the A on top. I think if we look at, the Defiant, which, when it gets destroyed, they make a new one, but it's a different registration.
It's a Sao Paulo first, isn't it?
Because it's the Sao Paulo.
Right.
So to me, it makes sense. And also, like you said, the ship was destroyed. They don't want the spore technology to become public yet until they can find a non-genetically altered human navigator. So it just makes sense to me.
I agree. Yeah, so I think it's fine. I think about it for two reasons. I think there's still some questions because it's not clear based off of the meeting with the other captains that the Admiral was hosting. I got the impression that the other captains understood that the Discovery had arrived from the past and that they also had a experimental drive, which he mentioned to them, and everyone's got to stay tight-lipped about that. But I don't know if that's super public knowledge yet within the rest of Starfleet. That hasn't been made clear. If people are aware that they are from the past, I assume that they wouldn't know because everyone would have seen this old ass ship rolling in. But whatever. But I think it's fine simply because it just makes sense and it's good. It just makes sense. Like it's. The only real problem that this becomes an argument is because they so fundamentally changed the NCC 1701 from the TOS show to the motion picture and they didn't put a -A on it. That's the only reason why this is an argument, is because they changed it all the way from top to bottom. They made a big thing about it in the movie to talk about that it's a completely different ship, left to right. By all accounts, by all rights, they should have probably referred to that one as a -A.
But it was never destroyed, though.
It was never destroyed, and I get that, and I understand, like, they could make the change to the records, but I feel like Dom kind of hit it on the head, in my opinion, which is because they fundamentally have changed that ship so much that I feel like it's appropriate to say this is a new ship, left to right, top to bottom, because we actually don't even know how much of that ship is now programmable matter. Obviously, we saw the consoles are that way. But how much, like, is the chair that? Like, is the floor program? Like, I don't know.
I don't know. Captain's chair now. That'll be interesting, wouldn't it?
Right, exactly. Let's detach captain's chair.
I mean, maybe that's something on, like, the other ships, because we've not seen the insides of any other future ships. Probably for budget concerns as well. And personally, they've not changed the inside of Discovery apart from, like, the CGI stuff too much. Now, they've done for one reason. The canon explanation is it's so the crew can remain familiar with it and slowly learn over time. The other explanation is that also saves them a ton of money not having to update an entire set. Because imagine having to re-update the Discovery set. Cost you quite a lot of money. I imagine maybe in season 4, and we're discussing this with uniforms as well, I imagine at some time they'll probably make the switch over and update to either a more different uniform maybe, or even like a different set entirely. They'll update to its aesthetic. But also I feel like it gently weans us as viewers in as well. If everything was totally changed this episode, we'd look at it and go, what the fuck, this isn't Discovery, what the hell is this? You know, it'd look a bit too different. You know, previous Star Trek shows have done that in a way. They wean you into new technologies and new stuff like that. It's not a forcible change, because forcible change can also turn viewers off. If you tune in one week to, you know, something, you tune in next week, it's completely futuristic and different. You're like, what the hell? It's like tuning to TOS, then tuning into Discovery Now. You're like, what? This is too different. What? Yeah. You wouldn't be able to understand it, Ben. That's one of the big complaints.
That was very much the case for season 1.
Yeah.
They've learned that.
Yeah, and I would say, like, I felt like they did a good job of narratively explaining why the ship internally looks the same.
Yeah.
Which is
and it makes sense.
The crew. It makes sense. It fits narratively. It fits the characters. It makes a lot of sense in universe. Obviously, the real reason for that is, like you just said, freaking cost to change all that. They don't have the money right now, I would assume, to do all that. But they found a reason as to why it made sense. So I'm fine with it. I was fine with that. And it was good that they even had the two different positions, you know, with Detmer kind of touching it and her feeling very uncomfortable with the idea of the new technology and not really trusting it, you know, because not everyone's going to be down with the new stuff.
How would you feel about it? Would you prefer traditional controllers, or would you prefer this new matter weird control stuff?
You know, as a pilot, I don't know. As a pilot, I feel like pilots are very much like set in their ways of like, this is my
We saw this in Voyager, didn't we? Remember when the Delta Flyer was first built? If you remember those episodes, Tom Paris had all these old controls on it, and the other crew were like, what the hell are you doing? You know, this is completely weird. But he had all these old controls. And personally, I'm not sure I'd be keen on program matter. I find it really creepy. I want buttons or touchpads and stuff like, you know, we've got touch screens on our phones now. I want something like that. I wouldn't get on a program matter. The only thing I did like was when Reese picked up the hologram of Discovery. That I don't mind. Be able to get on with that. But yeah, what are you guys thinking?
Well, I would say what they made a point with the programmable matter was it changes to how you want to interact with it. So if you just want to have your normal default Discovery controls, like Detmer probably does, it won't do anything because you're used to that. But if you want something that gives you more of an idea of what you're doing, like a joystick to move the ship around or something, I would like if the programmable matter allows for that. And it's not just like, oh, it's kind of like a hologram. I want it to actually make interfaces which work specifically and uniquely to the people interfacing with them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I agree. I think that would be kind of fun. I mean, that kind of brings you back to, I want to say that was the E.C. Henry video where he talked about the holograms on the Picard show.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was E.C. Henry that did that video where he was like, I wish that the holograms were programmable. So like when Picard sat down to pilot the La Sirena, he was able to call up an old school TNG panel in order to use that, which in this case, the programmable matter, for all of what we understand, he would have been able to do that. So I actually like how it's kind of done that now, clearly because it's made the panels on the Discovery look like that. So I thought that was kind of cool. And yeah, like you just said, like it'll be interesting to see what that looks like in the future, because if it's all adaptive, like if you go to a different person, like if you go to another Federation ship, do all of them have like different style looking panels and stuff instead of having like all of this kind of assembly line? Every sovereign class has the panels in the same position, whereas like now, do the same class of starship have slightly different panels based off of the user? Which would be kind of cool, I think, to kind of see that allows for more customization.
Perhaps it's also after you, Dom.
Oh, it'll probably look like Booker's control interface, where it's just like that very, I don't know how to describe it, stony like tactile response.
Yeah.
But it then can change to what you have been taught or what you need.
Yeah.
I was gonna say maybe because we've got these new comm badges as well, which have the whole like pads built into them as well. Maybe using a comm badge, your design will follow you around. Like with certain products, like I'm trying to think.
Yes.
Like you can log in on Google Chrome, it'll bring across all your bookmarks and stuff like that. Maybe the comm badges do something similar, where when you go sit down at another console, it uploads your UI version essentially. So it's going to be like how you use it. I'm trying to think of another example, but the Chrome one's the only I can think of, or how you can log into another computer. And you're like, your Google Docs will be the same as how you left it on the other computer, essentially. Right. Maybe the comm badge links in and does something like that. I was about to see a pipe dream technicality there, but it could be interesting. That's a good way of explaining how it would be on different ships. So Detmer could go and sit on the USS Noggin. It would be the same for her as it is on the Discovery away. Or maybe because the Discovery is still technically an old vessel, it may not be because, I don't know. I wonder if there is going to be a way to explain like that, because Discovery, arguably, although they've upgraded it, it's still over 1,000 years old at this point. Well, no, was it 800 years old? 900, yeah. It's 930 years old, so it's probably still going to lack in certain areas. I can't imagine the whole thing's still going to hold up, but...
Well, I mean, it depends. But... Yeah, I just depend, and that's why I go back to, I feel like it's appropriate to put the -A in there, because at this point, we don't actually know how much of this ship has changed, but from what we're gathering, it's substantial. Like this ship has changed like almost all the way from the inside out, and it's and something that we haven't talked about, and I don't think anybody's talking about right now, is this construct of programmable matter and the issue of the sphere data AI Zora, and how that's going to correlate. Is there going to be a connection between this programmable matter construct that now is all over the ship and seems to be very reactive and very responsive, and maybe some kind of AI within to itself? Is that going to link up with the computer/Zora construct and do some things there? Because I know there's a lot of people complaining about the visual inconsistency between this Discovery and the Calypso one, but there's no reason to assume that if Zora chose to redo the entire design of the Discovery to make it look like it did before, utilizing the programmable matter, especially if they're jumping it back in time and it has to pretend to not be a futuristic ship, they could redo the ship with programmable matter in order for it to kind of sit there and work that way. I don't know.
And it's just a cloaking field in a way, but just making it look like its original form.
Right.
Yeah, I think
that's what I think they're going to do. That's what I think.
Again, I come back to a point. It's a shame we didn't get to see the Discovery actually be used in this episode, because it's showing off its new upgrades. Even if it did have a short 5-minute sequence, it does come to the budget concerns, etc. So we do have our answer for that. But it is a shame we didn't get to see it, because I think it would have enhanced this episode a lot more to show it like having to cope. And I think Sue would be more pissed off with Burnham if he had to jump and she wasn't there, because he's without his number one. He'd be making decisions without his number one. It would put him in a vulnerable position and put the crew in a vulnerable position as well. And it would look worse for the Admiral, and therefore the ramifications of demoting Burnham, I guess she's demoted, not being first officer, there'd be more like justification there, I think. And let's talk about it for a minute. Now, Burnham's no longer first officer. Who do you guys think is the next in line? Someone said Tilly, but I don't think that's a possibility.
Would it be Nielsen?
No.
I mean, looking at it from a rank perspective, it could be Nielsen because she seems to be the second officer at the minute. Seems to be. But also, Commander Reno carries the rank of commander. I believe she's technically taking Burnham out of the equation. Commander Reno is actually the highest ranked member on the ship because Stamets is lieutenant commander. He's lieutenant commander. Yeah. I mean, technically, he is senior staff as well. But yeah, I guess, but it doesn't always, Trek doesn't always follow rank. You don't have to be commander to automatically be the first officer, as it seems to be the case. So I don't know who is, or even Sue may not choose to put a first officer, but I believe Starfleet policy may still insist on one being there. So I'm not sure. Who is a candidate for it, though? Who would be your choice?
Nielsen.
What about you, Nick?
I actually think that they're going to bring in somebody.
Yo, yes, I thought about.
I think they're going to be somebody else. I think it's going to be not a Discovery member. I think they're going to bring in a fresh face.
It could be the Admiral decides to do that because, there's been problems on board with this mysterious maybe wants to control it. So send Lieutenant Willow on board, like someone in the chat just suggested.
Yeah, Lieutenant Willow. That would be good. And she was great. I thought her interactions with the crew were good in the previous episodes. So I would be fine with that.
She could be sent there to keep an eye, essentially, and also take command if needed.
It would also very much be like a Sisko Kira situation where it's like a liaison officer.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you don't know about this future at all. I'm going to put someone who knows what's happening as your XO. And
someone he trusts as well to keep an eye. I feel that would make more sense, especially after, Saru and Burnham just pissed him off slightly. It would make a lot more sense to have someone
But the thing is where we are right now, with what we have currently, and this may change because we really have no idea what the rest of the season is.
True.
Where it is right now is Michael Burnham is not getting out of Starfleet. She's our POV character, and she is the primary main character of this show. And because the show is called the Star Trek Discovery in regards to the USS Discovery in Starfleet, she can't leave Starfleet. She has to stay in Starfleet. So ultimately, I think that she will get the position of number one back, which I think also kind of adds as to why I was a bit frustrated with her losing it to begin with, because her losing it felt a little bit too contrived and all that was done with, in my mind, where we are right now, with the unavoidable eventuality of her getting it back and her getting it anyways. So it's like, why bother removing it when she's going to get it? We should have just continued to work the character growth piece as opposed to her being fired because she wanted to go save her boyfriend, even though the mission she went on should have been sanctioned, absolutely helped out the Federation and hurt the Emerald Chain. And they didn't need her for the mission that the Admiral had the Discovery on tap for. As Saru literally said that at the end. He was like, well, we didn't need her anyways, even if we have to go. So it's like, why didn't they just let her go then? It was very frustrating.
The Admiral himself said he probably would have allowed it if someone actually let him know. And he gave Saru a smack on the wrist for that as well. So it makes sense. Right. I do agree with you here because it doesn't make sense because that ending moment where Saru and Burnham stood there as like first officer and captain was like, finally, we're here. We're back to square one. Now it seems we've ripped it up and we're back to episode 3 of Discovery season 1 again, where Burnham's not got a pot to piss in, and we're back to that route again. It's like, well, where do we go from now? A lot of people are theorizing. Yeah, a lot of people are theorizing she's going to leave Starfleet again, but I just said, Arby's going to come back to where it's the end of season 3 again, and that's all good. She's got a medal. She's promoted back to commander. Wait, it's like, oh, for God's sakes. That's where it's going to get a little bit like cliche in a way. It's like, okay, is season 4 going to be the same, or are we going to do another 2 seasons and we're going to repeat the same story again? I don't know. For that, I do feel a bit like about it personally, but...
I agree. I mean, the story that they're trying to sell right now is that she's self-sabotaging because she's got trauma, you know, and she's dealing with a lot. But it's not, that part of it is not written well because of the way that the last several episodes have unfolded. Like we had that really touching moment between the two of them with the telescope at the end of, I want to say that was episode 3. Then they didn't have a really big moment in episode 4 because they spent it apart. But then in episode 5, they had another really touching moment at the end there where fell into her to take care of that mission. And they both kind of connected at the end and wanted to continue to grow. And I felt like we were growing with them back into their roles. And then they just undid it here, which is frustrating. And again, we may feel very different about this.
Yeah.
at the end. And I think we probably will. I think once we get all 13 episodes.
For the minute, it is frustrating, like you're saying, because we've seen that development, and I personally really liked it, and I believe we said this about 2 weeks ago. It seems that we have come full circle, and they're growing back into their roots now, you know, Sue accepting with Telescope there. It does feel like we've come full circle in a very nice and rewarding way. It felt good as a viewer to watch this. Like, over the last 3 years, we've watched these characters grow, and the growth there seems good, but now, 2 episodes later, it does seem like the whole thing's fallen apart again. And yes, maybe this is going to come back and do it even better, but I don't know, it's...
Yeah, well,
I hope it does, because else I'm going to probably be disappointed at this, because it does feel like they've let down the character development for not only Burnham but also Saru as well. It's just, I don't know. Yeah, it's a lot to think about.
And it is frustrating because, and maybe you guys feel the same way here, is it feels like Saru was a really great captain until he put Captain on. And now he's a bit struggling, which I understand. Like, he was... Which I feel like is kind of, it's like a two-edged sword, right? Because he was really great in a crisis, but managing a crisis action team, you know, and leading a starship are 2 totally different things. And I get that. But I feel like the things that they're making him struggle with aren't the right things, if that makes sense. I felt like, especially in this one where it's like his judgment was called, you know, like we were questioning his judgment by making Burnham his number 1. And it's like, okay, that's kind of a good thing, I think. I don't really know, because she's very capable, as they just showed us in the previous episode. She's more than capable of running the starship without him there, which is why I thought we were building up, and then they just kind of undercut it again. So it was very strange. I don't know. Does that make sense? Like, it seems like they're kind of writing his obstacles weirdly, if that makes sense.
So here's a quick question for you. Do you think Burnham will ever become captain of Discovery? Because we know Discovery's got a 4th and 5th season. Do you think Burnham will ever become permanent captain? Just a, you know, pipe dream question here.
No.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
They very much sold this series as, oh, it's unique because it's not from the perspective of a captain. Obviously, you know, things change.
We've gotten away from that a little bit.
Exactly. That's why I asked. I wonder if it could possibly have changed now. It's like, oh, let's do this.
I love Saru enough that what you're proposing would either have to take Saru out of the equation
that's what I fear.
by death or reassignment, and I don't want either of them.
Neither do I. It wouldn't make sense, because Saru's arguably like one of the... Well, he is the main character as well of this, you know, and he is now a captain of Discovery, which has been a main character for a while. First it was Lorca, then it was Pike, now it's Saru, who is like the secondary main character who is commanding the ship that Burnham's on.
It's crazy.
And so this kind of goes back to, again, at the end of this season, we may feel very, very differently, because I don't know if it's bad writing or if it's intentional writing at this point, because right now it seems like Michael Burnham actually doesn't fit into the show anymore. Does that make sense? Like, the crew feels like it's like they're over here doing one thing, and then Michael Burnham's got this whole other set of experiences, and she's almost isolated from them. And I understand that. I'm hoping that that's not because it's poor writing. I'm hoping that that's actually played up because it's, narratively speaking, because she spent a year apart from them, that she doesn't feel attached, and they're doing that purposely through the writing and the editing of the show. So I'm hoping that's intentional, and I think we'll see that obviously in the next 6-7 weeks. We'll know the answer to that question, but I'm hoping that's the case. I'm hoping it's not just poor writing.
I mean, you look at it from a different angle. You know, she spent, and we didn't really see it as well. I believe this may is where episode 2 and 3 let itself down. We haven't really seen Burnham survive this quote-unquote year in this 32nd century. We saw 30 seconds of it in her flashback thing, and I feel like this may is where it's let the series. And if we got like an extra 10 minutes of her journeying around a book or something like that, and another episode maybe dedicated to Burnham surviving on her own, you know, something like that could have worked well. And we discussed this when we started talking about episode 2 and 3. You know, when they it was episode 2 we discussed it, and Burnham saved them. I said, okay, is episode 3 going to be about, you know, seeing Burnham go around trying to wait for Discovery? At the end of her episode, Discovery comes through and she goes to save it. It links up there. I feel like it's maybe the question here, because obviously if you've spent a year away from everything you know, you're going to change as a person. There's no argument tonight. You're going to change. And, you know, if she probably thought to a point that Discovery was never going to return, you know, and it may have been lost, or they could have been come for a century later. After a while, you're going to begin to think, well, sod that then. I'm going to make my own thing. And her mission in that year became just, you know, finding the cause of the burn and finding Starfleet. She's completed one of those. She found Starfleet with Discovery, but she's not found the cause of the burn yet, which caused this mess and destroyed everything she and her crew technically know of. Therefore, she's massively obsessed with finding a burn, hence the whole point of this episode going to find a black box, bolting on with saving Book at the same time. That was another thing to propel her there. I feel like that's if we'd gotten to see more of her adventure in the 32nd century, this episode may have been understood a lot better in terms of her willingness to go there and find the cause for Burn. But yeah, it could just be constraints of the series again or something like that.
And we may see that. There may be an episode. I mean, we have the episode titles, but they mean nothing until we see them, really. And we may see that. We may actually get another episode where we're seeing the future Burnham gallivant around the universe, with Book doing things and struggling to do that. I mean, they reference it so much that it seems almost weird that we don't see more. So it's possible that we'll get one later on in the second half of the season where we'll see a little bit of that adventure. And that's why I say, like, these things that we're talking about right now, and I don't want the chat to get misconstrued here, is we're talking about it as a snapshot in time as of episode 6. And it's difficult because they write these seasons to be full 13-episode stories. And we don't know how this actually is going to play out. And we don't know if it's actually good or not. Because right now it's kind of like, I don't know. But at episode 13, it'd be like, wow, remember when they did that in episode 6 and we said episode 6 sucks? Wow, we look stupid, don't we? We got egg on the face because of that. So we'll see what happens, though.
Yeah, once we reach the next episode, I'm sure next week we'll have a completely different opinion on it. It might make more sense. Or this could be an evolving story where we may not have a full answer to this one, a couple of others. On Unification 3, just in a chat, it's not a direct follow-up to Unification 2. There may be different things. Let's talk about this a minute, because of the Unification 3, let's get off this topic a minute, because I feel like we're getting a bit too obsessed with that one. Unification 3 is the next episode. Now, obviously, this links, or potentially shall link in with Unification Part 1 and Part 2. It's a two-parter, back of the Next Generation, famously starred Leonard Nimoy as Spock once again in Next Gen of Picard and Data. Very cool episode, arguably some of TNG's best work there, trying to, have those episodes together. I love those episodes myself, particularly, Data, nerve pinching, Sealer, and all of that. Again, having Sealer back there was great, and that's a character we've thought ages might return in modern Star Trek again, but not just yet. Maybe Picard Season 2. A man can dream, can't they, Nick? A man can dream.
A man can dream, yes, indeed.
So Unification Part 3, and looking from the trailer, and we've got our breakdown of a Ready Room clip and trailer coming this week, thanks to our new writer, Andrew, who's joined the team. Keep an eye out for that on Tuesday. So far in the trailer, you can see, I think, arguably Romulans, because you can see the badge on a uniform, and we do know Vulcans appear in this episode. So therefore, the name applies. This is the unification of the Vulcans and the Romulans. Or perhaps it's already happened, and something may be relating to that. It could be pretty interesting. Or maybe, Admiral Vance has tasked Discovery to go and reunify these two great species. Currently, we do not know what has happened to these species, like many others, in the 32nd century. We don't know the status of Vulcan. Burnham herself was very attached to that, because she was raised by Vulcan parents. Well, one Vulcan parent and one human. And Romulans, the only last thing we actually know about them, is thanks to Picard, is they're practically destroyed and very much, roaming around space like nomads in a way.
The Romulan Free State.
Exactly. We don't know very much about these two species anymore. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Unification plays this out. And it really is going to be our big update on how these two species, or civilizations, shall I say, are actually doing in the Star Trek universe right now.
I will say, specifically talking about, you say that there's a Romulan because of the symbol. If you look really closely at the symbol, it looks like it has a Vulcan idic symbol within the bird of prey. So it looks to be an amalgamation of both the Vulcan symbol.
So perhaps they're already reunified.
Symbol. So I hope they're already unified. It's like,
What I'm thinking is it's going to be, and this is a purely speculation, obviously. What I'm thinking is it's going to be a spiritual sequel of Unification 1 and 2, in that the Vulcans and the Romulans have unified, probably post-Burn, Romulus being destroyed. They probably have consolidated their species, because they probably were both concerned about their future. So I think that has been the unified, but I think the unification expanding portion of that is to try to get, if they're not already, to try to pull Vulcan and maybe even other planets back into the Federation. And this may be, for all we know, this could be maybe we've jumped forward a little bit, where they're like, okay, now we need to start actually rebuilding and getting more of the member worlds back into the fold, and we need the Discovery to go and host a meeting or host a thing in order to kind of redo a charter or something, because it looks like there's a big ceremony happening.
Yeah, there's something going on in Discovery.
Right, so maybe we're going to be re-signing the charter or something like that, and trying to get the member worlds back into play.
That'd be interesting.
Right. We could be rebuilding a Federation here or something like that, and inviting them back into it. And if obviously Romulan or Vulcan particularly is always, I predict Vulcan's always going to survive well. They always looked after themselves. One thing, particularly in Enterprise, you should see that Vulcans always looked after themselves, didn't they? And you still see that as we go through Star Trek. They've always got a nice looking planet. I reckon they've still got that, and those resources may be really ideal to the Federation. And also, there's been no mention. Are the Vulcans still a part of the Federation? There's been no mention of that yet. No one's really touched on that. So they could.
We haven't seen any. Yeah, we haven't seen any of them.
Because surely, I could believe the Vulcans were one of the biggest founders of Federation alongside humans and Andorians, etc. So surely, like, if we're moving Federation HQ, why not move it to Vulcan? Because, could have been an interesting one. Why didn't we do that? Andoria, not entirely sure they're a part of it because they've been mentioned a part of a syndicate. So it could be implied they're no longer a part of it anymore.
From the maps you see, Andoria and Orion are listed as Emerald Chain planets.
There we go. So Andoria's probably left the Federation and probably not coming back. They always had a bitter, Andorian's always a bit to the Federation anyway. But what about Tellarites as well? There's a founding member. We've not seen them.
They probably dipped out too, to be honest. Because you got to think so we're dealing with a universe where Earth isn't a member of the Federation.
Exactly.
So if Earth is not a member, the likelihood that Andoria, Tellarite, and Vulcan are no longer members, I think, is extraordinarily high. I think it's very likely that Vulcan and any of their sister planets or moons that maybe the Romulan colonies are on or whatever probably are not members because they probably also were abandoned by the Starfleet group, the Federation Council and the Starfleet group that went and disappeared into their secret hideout. And so they probably also felt very similar to that because if they didn't keep up with Earth, they probably didn't keep up with Vulcan. I'm just speculating,
Yeah, I agree with your speculation. We see elements of this in Picard in a way. Now, when the whole Romulus destruction came around, particularly from the Picard book, which was called The prequel one?
Last Best Hope.
The Last Best Hope by Ian McCormack. In that, I believe it's explored and the episodes, and Clancy mentions it as well, is that because they offered to help the Romulans, members of the Federation threatened to walk away and basically threatened to resign, didn't they, from the Federation? There was something, a line that basically said that this could have happened again, 900 years later, or 700 years later in that case, or whatever it was. Correct me on dates later. It could have helped, back then, maybe after the burn, the Federation's like, right, we need to look after ourselves and still help people. And other people go, well, no, we've been decimated. We're going to go look after ourselves instead. Fuck you, we're off. Which makes perfect sense. We could have had that same situation again. And what you just mentioned, Nick, about people withdrawing, it's almost a bit like real-world politics in a way. If one big country does something, usually the little guys will also follow along. Look at the United Nations of the EU. As soon as one big boy does something, the others are going to go, oh, okay, no, we better do that as well. And before you know it, 10 more people have gone and signed a treaty or left something. It's always the case. There's always one person left on their own going, well, I'm going to have to do that now, won't we?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, for all we know, Vulcan could have dipped out of the Federation because of its proximity to Andoria and feeling like if they continue to be aligned politically with the Federation, that they were putting themselves at risk. So maybe they wanted to go back to being a neutral third party and they stepped away and kind of just turtled up.
A bit like in DS9, how Bajor never joined the Federation, but instead signed a non-aggression treaty with Dominion to basically keep them safe. They just didn't join the Federation, which made sense. Obviously, if Dominion won, they probably would have crushed Bajor again, but hey.
Yes.
Also, it looks like Emerald Chain territory does take up a lot of former Romulan space.
Okay.
So it's like the Romulan space and then going to...
What about Klingons at this point? We've not heard of them.
We see on the map this episode that there's the Klingon zone and the Cardassian zone, which suggests that they did join the Federation.
All right. Are they still a part of it now? Or?
I don't think so. No. And then there's the Ferengi territory.
No, I'm glad to know they're still around.
Which assumes that they didn't join the Federation because the difference between zone and territory.
Grand Nagus Quark the Fifth is running the Federation. Running the Ferengi at the minute.
Running the Ferengi. I doubt that they joined, and it's probably a lawless, crazy land over there. They're probably loving it. So I am very excited. That's why I say I think Unification 3 will be a spiritual sequel. I don't think it's going to do specifically with reuniting the Vulcans and the Romulans. I think it's going to have to do with the fact that they've already unified and now they're trying to pull them back into the Federation. That's what I think it's going to be about. And setting that tone of getting, once they get Vulcan / Romulans into it, then they're going to try to get the next group back into it. And they may potentially even try to pull the Andorians back in and break up that Orion Andorian alliance and fracture the Emerald Chain. It would be a very politically strong move, and that would be something that they haven't tried yet, because it seems to be like they're always just trying to fight the Emerald Chain. But if they come in with some strong diplomats, maybe they'll be able to convince them to do something else.
Interesting you mention this, actually, because Osira has now been mentioned a couple of times as this big bad enemy. Now, usually in story writing, you don't mention someone by name a couple of times. We're probably going to see Osira, whoever they are, at some point, and probably have a confrontation with them. So they've mentioned it a couple of times now. So I reckon that's going to potentially go in. We may see the dissolution of the Emerald Chain, or we may live on. You know, there's a lot. We are in a brand new century for Star Trek, where there's a hell of a lot of information to unpack and play with. Each episode, we're getting this overload of new information in a way. There is a hell of a lot to process, which I like. You know, it's a brand new thing to explore. Discovery is doing its namesake. We're discovering a new era of Star Trek in a way, which is fantastic. It's so good they jumped to this century now, because we've got a whole different playbox for this. Discovery Season 3, like a sandbox, really, isn't it? You just got everything to play with. You can build your own future in a way. Should have a tagline.
Yeah,
build your own future.
Well, that's right. I mean, that's the thing, is that they've really opened themselves up to be able to create any stow that they want.
Yeah.
And I think it's great that they have that ability. And I'm loving it so far, even though this episode was a bit of a drag for me. But ultimately, overall, season 3 has been really phenomenal, and I'm super excited to see the rest of it.
Yeah.
It's been a nice, refreshing, breath of fresh air, I think, because Discovery Season 2 did well. I enjoyed Season 2. The ending, when you look at Season 2 as a whole, is a little bit contrived in a way. However, Season 3, I find it's nice, refreshing. It's new Star Trek, isn't it? It's not like we're back in TOS again. I don't mind like prequels and stuff like that. I'm fine with it. I don't get in a huff over it. However, having something totally new, I love it. It's like Picard when that came out. It was a nice, different taste of Star Trek, but it was very similar to what previously came before it. But Discovery is completely new. It is like having like a brand new series, like Next Gen was when it came out. It's so different, but still Star Trek. It's great. I really can't wait to see how it goes. Before I do on, thank you to Mark for their $5 donation saying, first visit, thank you for insights. No worries, happy to help. Chat, if you do have any things you'd like us to discuss, we're probably going to start running stuff soon, but if you've got any comments or things you'd like us to talk about this episode, or maybe theorizing on next episode, do let us know. And remember, we are here live every Sunday at 9 p.m. at GMT. So, Unification, before we do go on, we've also got a couple more episodes coming up so far this season, obviously. Are we 12 or 14 episodes this season? I forget.
13?
13. Okay, so we're about to be halfway, well, with this episode and this week, we're almost halfway through season 3 now, aren't we?
Yep, we're about halfway through it. And it's important to note that a lot of the previews and stuff like that, have only covered this first half of the season. So there's a lot of, very much like Lower Decks, where we only saw like that first half of stuff. I don't know if we're going to get a mid-season trailer potentially at the end of this episode, but we might. We might get one.
Yeah, potentially could land, just as December begins, because Discovery runs into New Year just about. I believe the last episode is on the 7th, is it? I don't have my calendar in front of me.
It's on the 7th of
January. Yeah, that's just, so it ends literally in New Year as well. I personally thought he might have taken a cheeky break, but I give him... Unfortunately not. So
we do have an episode directly on New Year.
So yeah, I was discussing this earlier, because obviously Christmas plans at the minute, like you probably know, Nick, because of virus, traveling anywhere is a bit out of a question a minute. So I'm not sure if I'm going home this year. If I am going home, the Mike and the Mac are coming with me, because we're recording first review on the 24th, Christmas Eve, yay, and the next review on New Year's Eve. But on the highlight, it's not like we're going out and doing anything, because we can't at the minute. Thanks,
That's
Corona.
right. That's right. Hashtag lockdown. That's right.
Let's do a lockdown party. Join us here for the 31st, where we're doing Trek New Year. Just Ketwolski with the DJ set,
Yeah. Wicka, 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 whoop. Yeah,
so the last episode, Discovery, next year is going to be on the 7th, and that'll be episode 13. I don't think we have a name for that just yet. Do we have a name for one, Dom?
What, for the last episode?
Yeah, is there a name for it?
Outside.
Oh, that's... That could be not final yet. We don't know that yet, because they do sometimes cheekily change them. But, Outside. The name suggests that. So Unification, obviously, they do mean and connote, or like denote what the episode's about in a way, doesn't it? Like, die trying, or die standing, sorry. Is it die standing or die trying?
No, it's die trying.
Trying.
I'm always going to get that confused for as long as that's going on. Die trying, how does that relate to episode 5 in a way? That was more...
I guess with the dad...
The Doctor was going to die trying saving people.
The dad's going to die trying to...
Yeah, he's going to die trying saving his kids.
Family that have died.
People of Earth was pretty obvious.
Forget Me Not was dealing with forgotten memories.
And then Scavengers was basically people scavenging. That's a little bit basic. Unification. Do you have the name list in front of you, Dom?
Unification 3, obviously gonna be a continuing. Something which some people said in chat. You know how in season 2 of Discovery we got a last time on the original series of the Cage? If they do that with Unification 1 and 2.
Oh yeah, that could be interesting.
I would love that.
That was one of the best episodes of season 2.
Yeah,
I would love that. That would be great.
I still stand by my point. That shot, that shot of it morphing into Anson Mount's face, and is it Jeffrey Hunter?
Yes.
Yeah, that there, fantastic. I honestly love that. I remember tuning in first day to watch that. I think when it was February last year. I think it must have been. And it's like seeing that, I was like, Jesus, that is fantastic. I love that episode. It will still remain one of the best edited.
And then we've got The Sanctuary.
That's
which,
8, isn't it?
That's 8, which
Okay.
may tie into the sanctuaries we've seen that book is a part of.
Could be
maybe.
something else for another species.
Probably book related. Yeah, probably book related.
Then we've got Terra Firma Part 1 and Part 2.
What does
as 9
firma
and
mean
10.
again? That seems like a define.
Solid ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a new home for the
I like
Federation or
them as
something.
Ooh, nice.
Could be.
And then we've got the Citadel for episode 11.
Thinking
You
of
know,
Clone
quite
Wars here?
different from the Sanctuary. The Citadel.
The
yeah,
Citadel.
Clone Wars.
Ooh. That's-
Who knows what that's about?
Yeah, that's weird.
Good of the People for episode 12.
That sounds very Federation-y.
Our New Year's episode. Yeah, that's probably Federation-y, rebinding the Federation or whatever.
Potentially.
And then outside, we can finally go outside when lockdown is over.
Nice
You
dream
wish
there,
that's what that
Dom.
meant.
Nice dream.
Yeah, you wish, playa.
I just before it just occurred to me there, like we said, like the people. Was it the will of the people or something? Or people's what was it, Tom?
The good of the people.
The good of people.
The good of the
Do you
people.
reckon we're going to get like an episode in Discovery, either season 3 or season 4, where they re-sign the Federation Accord or something like that? Because remember in Enterprise, as much as the end episode was a bit basically you remember Archer walked down and signed the Federation Accords. Do you reckon we're going to see that again? You know, when they rebind the Federation, it could be really interesting to do something like that, like mirror Enterprise in a way, where it's like they're re-signing the Accords. This time for like Admiral Vance or something like that, or maybe Admiral Archer the 23rd. Well, actually, there wouldn't be because Archer didn't have kids, but
What's that really bad TOS episode where Kirk
Steady on.
quotes the Constitution?
I don't know.
Is that the Omega Directive? Or something?
I have no idea.
I have no idea.
You're
TOS
asking
is
the
not
wrong-
my
I have no
expertise.
idea.
But it's just, instead of the Constitution, it's just quoting the Federation Charter. These words mean something.
These words mean something.
Yeah.
Good, pretty interesting. So, chat, what are we saying today? I'm quoting now a book. Oh, for God's sakes.
no.
It's time for a trip to Riser. Yeah, where is Riser? You know, what's going on? You know, we need to go there. So, just quick pit stop at whatever.
Yeah.
Someone says, I predict Michael Burnham will save the day in the last episode. It's kind of a given. This is Star Trek Discovery. I'm not saying it in a rude way, but it is, you know, Michael Burnham's show. So she is going to have a big part of it. Just like, you know, it's always going to be the case, you know. That is Discovery. She is the main character. It's like saying, oh, what a surprise, Picard saved the day in the next gen. Who could have guessed?
Ooh.
Chat, if you have any last bits, feel free to let us know. They are killing The Expanse. Oh, The Expanse comes back next month. That's going to be fun.
Ooh, fun. That'll be good.
Someone mentions that Terra Firma could link to Terra Elysium.
Potentially.
Because, you know,
Maybe.
maybe.
It does have Terra in it, but
It does.
I think
I
as we
don't
get
think so.
closer, like next episode, we'll be able to sit down and maybe make a better assumption of these things here. But I'm just going to say now, so we got Unification next week, and the plan is like Burnham may temporarily walk away from Starfleet. Yeah, as we've discussed throughout the stream, she will come back to it in a way. I reckon Sanctuary could be her pissing around a book and, you know, saving some whales or whatever, or slugs or whatever those things were. I can't remember. Saving the whales, yeah. Can you
I would like
save
that.
the whales?
Yes.
Yeah, because
Yes. Why don't they sing?
They go back in time and they save the whales.
Oh,
again.
Yeah. And they
whales
don't pay
were
for their
killed
pizza.
in the burn.
They steal him from those old scientists, am I right?
You think the whales are dead? No, the whales are no. Dom, you shut your mouth.
That's what that cruise ship was doing.
Okay.
It was eating him on Earth.
Yeah, they was hunting them.
They can.
It's
I
another
bet.
whaling ship.
Yeah, that fucking whale ship there. That ship that went under the bridge there, or came around from a bridge. Imagine if it has some sails on it, just raised up. It's actually a starship. It's Earth's Defense Force's flagship. It's just a boat.
That would be. It's just a boat. That's it. It's just a sailboat.
It's very cash money.
Yeah. Very Republic credits of you. Yes.
We don't accept Republic credits around here.
I need something more real. Dilithium.
I wonder.
Dilithium.
Yeah, we see that. I was about to say, I wonder if we see currency back in Trek again. But obviously, dilithium is technically the currency being used right now because previously Star Trek has
think
strayed away
so.
from using. Or the
Yeah.
Federation has strayed away from using currency. Now the Federation's around. Obviously, it looks like people are trading dilithium or anything for that matter.
Anything.
Yeah.
My shoe.
Scavenge parts.
Yeah.
This vintage
Yeah.
can of Coke over here. Oh, one thing
This
before we do
old.
it. After you.
Oh, go ahead.
No, after you.
I was gonna say this old TNG phaser that they.
I was
had in
literally
that-
about to say that. I
yeah,
love seeing
and
that
it
in this episode.
Yeah,
Or
that
the
was
fact
good.
that we saw some behind the scenes shots and there's a guitar hero guitar in the strap.
Imagine Riker's trombone in the background just for a laugh.
Oh god, that would make me so sad. A box of Riker's pizzas, you know, just sitting in there.
A box
you
of
know?
Chateau Picard in the corner or something like that, you know.
Chateau Picard. Yeah.
I wonder what happened
box.
to the vineyard at this point. Like, I wonder if this vineyard's still around.
Earth seems fine, so I'm sure it's like a museum.
I wonder who's running
like-
it now.
It's probably some Romulan descendants. From
Yeah.
Laris.
Ooh.
Like,
That makes
you
me
know,
happy,
Picard
now that I
just
think about that.
bequeathed it to them. And it's like,
You think they popped out a little Romulan baby? I think that could have happened.
Yeah.
I like that.
So
I like
one
your
thing
theory.
I am seeing from the chat quite a lot of, and I'm seeing this across the fandom in a minute, is what is happening to the Borg. So Ricky says, so given everyone's scattered and torn apart, do you think the Borg ever considered assimilating anyone since everyone is far weaker? Well, we don't really know what's happened to the Borg, I see this discussion being brought up quite a lot. And Nicodemus, I'll ask your opinion in a second. The Borg had a lot of different technology. They had like warp drive propulsion. They used transwarp and various things like that, and warp conduits, etc. And I'd have to double check my updates on the Borg tech again, because I'm not an expert on that one. They use different propulsion. They use transwarp gateways to get to different places. So therefore, are they affected? What's happened to Borg? There's been 900 years here. We don't know if the Borg were eventually defeated. In the Star Trek Destiny books, the Borg were defeated by the Kalar, the species that originally, quote-unquote, created them accidentally. So therefore, that could still happen. Starfleet could have defeated the Borg in the last 900 years. It's a possibility.
I think it's fair to say also that it hasn't come up because the Discovery crew doesn't know about them.
No, it doesn't need to be brought up as well.
They wouldn't be like, hey, whatever happened to the Borg? Because they don't know about the Borg. So I don't think it needs to be brought up. I think we had enough Borg with Picard. I think we're good to go with the Borg. I don't think it needs to be brought up.
If the story demands it, a flyby mention of who's that person over there, or that's a Borg, or was a Borg. By the way, we'll tell you about those later. Long story, something like that. Or maybe someone is reading on like the historic battles. You could have another moment where Saru's in his ready room reading historic battles from iconic Starfleet captains. Mentions Battle of Wolf 359. He dives further into it. Something like that. An easy explanation, but ultimately it doesn't need to be told about. Nothing in Discovery's story so far needs to evolve a Borg. Yes, we as fans want to know everything because we've got more days in a week than there are Discovery episodes to discuss it, which is good. I'd love to know what's happened to Borg, but it's not needed right now.
You know in season 1 when Saru was like, computer, talk about some captains and compare me to
like Jonathan Archer, etc.
Now he can talk with Zora, and it's like, hey, can you tell me about, because he's kind of wavering in his leadership from this episode. He's still got stuff to reflect on. He could very much be like, hey, what were some of the great captains
from the last 900
years? And it's like, oh, Captain Jean-Luc Picard and Janeway, and there was the guy that became a god called Sisko.
There could be some more of that. I think I don't know if he's going to ask that question specifically, but I think they're going to play up more of the Saru-Zora dynamic as we kind of go on. Maybe Zora will become the new first officer. The first officer will be an AI.
Potentially. How's Starfleet going to react to that? Because AIs in Star Trek, that's a bit of a touchy subject there, because you have like androids, etc. But AIs? Section 31 was an AI itself, bear in mind. Like, the control was an AI.
With it in this future, because the Admiral says, oh, our AI has advanced considerably since you were last around. When you've got Dr.
The holograms,
the one
they essentially could be AIs themselves,
They could be. Oh, yeah.
I look at Halo for a great comparison of that, etc., and how their AIs are handled. It would be great to hear in the records if some kind of battle of Procyon happened with Enterprise J, although different than the one we saw in Ent. Well, would the Battle of Procyon actually happen? Because it wouldn't really, would it?
Happened.
No, because when Archer changed the timeline and defeated the Spear Builders in modern day, their battle would never have happened, would it? A Federation would have needed to gone to
No, it wouldn't have happened.
I believe the battle would have still happened. I think the battle was always going to happen.
Oh yes, because it was changing in the past, weren't they?
The Sphere Builders were attempting to.
I hate time travel.
Attempting to prevent their loss at the Battle of Procyon.
Yes, good point. So
they were going back in time to change it, right? So that needed to happen because that's what should have actually occurred.
Honestly, time travel stuff so confusing. I always get confused.
However, from what the Enterprise crew did, the Delphic Expanse wouldn't have expanded all the way to Procyon 5, so the Sphere Builders couldn't have fought at Procyon 5. In the now.
Welcome to time travel and why it's bullshit. Let's never discuss this again.
Yeah, we'll have to go back. I have to get more research on that. I'm pretty sure it was.
Let's come back to this next week, maybe. We can always just make a video or discuss it on a separate stream. Ensign Vicky, as we are ending up the stream, thank you for your donation. $2. He says, plot twist: the Kazon destroyed the Borg in 2569.
No,
I'm fine with it. They couldn't assimilate the hair. It was the hair they couldn't.
Yeah. Oh my god, imagine that.
Want to assimilate them. That's the whole point.
So good for
That
Jensen
is
and Vicky
so
just
sad.
said here. I think this will be our last discussion subject before we end off, because we are going over as well. I wonder if the burn was actually galaxy-wide. For Delta and Gamma Quadrant specifically, how do you think the Dominion is faring? This is a good point, because in this episode, although after Burn is running around, it's revealed that she discovered black boxes that happened at a different time, therefore saying the burn had an origin point, possibly speculating that someone deliberately caused the burn. If so, did they just target the Federation, or did they target the entire galaxy? If they targeted the entire galaxy, okay. But if they targeted just the Federation, then it could be someone like the Dominion or Borg or some other spacefaring thing out there, or even entity, doing this on purpose. So therefore, there's a lot to think about, really. I think there's a lot more theories to be had there, and I think we're going to have to give that some more thought, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm still of the belief as of right now that it was not an attack. It was unintentional. It happened by accident. I think it was an accident.
Maybe it's revealed the Federation did it themselves.
It could have been a Federation science experiment gone awry. It could have had something to do with because there was a throwaway line about how the Discovery and Burnham were hit by some kind of quantum rift thing as they were traveling through time, which is why they arrived at different locations / different times.
Yeah.
So that it could have been something like that. Maybe as they were going through time travel, whatever it was that caused the burn resonated through time in that regard. I don't know. Maybe they hit it. I don't know. Something like that. I think it was an accident, though. I don't think it was an attack.
I hope it's not like the Discovery or Burnham caused it, because that'll be a bit... I don't know. I'm not a fan of that.
It would be interesting. It was because they said they had banned time travel. If there was something that they had done to try and prevent time travelers from moving about time into the future.
Because, put in, like a temporal wall.
Yeah, if you say, hey, we've destroyed time travel, the time machine still existed, therefore would still do things. But if they had then been like, okay, we're making a temporal firewall, you know.
Yeah, Federation didn't update for anti-security or for antivirus.
They should have. Somebody was using NordVPN, which brings us to today's sponsor. Yeah.
Well, that teaches Admiral Vance for using Norton Security. Shouldn't have done that one. God damn it.
Don't do that. AVG, probably. Free edition. Yeah, it's not good.
Well, gents, that does bring us to the end of our live stream. I think we discussed a good chunk of episode 7. Next week, obviously, on to episode 8, Unification. We'll hopefully be joined by...
You're jumping ahead. We're talking about episode 6. Now we're talking about episode 7.
Scavengers.
Where the hell am I? Why do I think it's episode 7? I don't know why.
You just want to get to the next thing. That's it.
I want this year to be over, to be honest. Next week will be on a Some episode, and hopefully be joined by a special guest who I will tell you another day. However, thank you very much for tuning in to watch tonight. Nick, Dom, I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And of course, if you want to watch Ketwolski, it's a fantastic review of this latest episode and agree or heavily disagree with his comments. I'm joking. You can head over to his channel where he's reviewed it and brought up some good points which we discussed here today as well. Don't forget, we'll be back next Sunday at 9 p.m. GMT, where you can catch our latest Star Trek Discovery breakdown through the live stream and get your questions answered by us. This week, in terms of content, we'll be discussing what's upcoming on Star Trek Discovery Episode 7 with Unification Part 3 and our Tuesday breakdown of the latest trailer and the Ready Room clip, including some exclusive pictures from CBS as well. On Wednesday, we've got a comic review. Don't miss that for fans of Star Trek Deep Space Nine? We're doing one of the comics this week. I'll let you know when I look at my calendar. And then on Thursday, we'll be back with Episode 7's review as per usual, which is going to be very fun. Once again, you can follow us on Twitter via our links down below, including our social media and soon-to-be upgraded website, which we'll be announcing very soon, so stay tuned for that. Yes, I've just teased you all that news. We'll talk about it sometime closer to the date. In the meantime, I've been Captain Jack here on Trek Central. Thank you for 60,000 subscribers, by the way. Before I forget, we actually passed that this weekend. Completely forgot that. Tells you how on the ball I am this week. Oh my god, it's been a long week. It's been a long road. It's been a long road. There you go.
It's been a long road.
Getting from here to there. Before we sing this, thank you for watching and good night, everyone. Thank you for joining the chat. We'll see